Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. My name's Todd Pearson, here with my good friend and partner, Wes Brown.
Hey, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful Memorial weekend. It was nice to have a few days off. So
this week on the podcast, we have a great artist, and I'm really happy that we're able to get him on. But before we continue with our interview for this week, I just want to say thank you very much to all those veterans that have served their country. And I hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And I want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Steve Carlson, who listens to our podcast pretty regularly and told me that he's a FedEx driver and he likes to listen to us. He has a route up in the hills, I think in the Evergreen area. And so shout out to Steve. And also there's some, we've been in contact with Rose Frederick. And if you remember Rose from our interview back in, I guess it was January. Yeah, because it's the Western Stock Show. She's the curator for the Coors Western art exhibit. And she has some phenomenal things in the works. So hopefully we will have her on sometime in the future and talk about some of the things that she has going on. So shout out to Rose. And to get started, tonight we have Fritz Anders, artist. He does phenomenal work, and he's a person that I've wanted to get on here for a while, but the stars haven't aligned. So it took a pandemic and the virtues of Zoom, this technology that everybody utilizes now, to get Fritz on. Fritz, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, man.
Good.
It's good to see you. Before we get into some of your history, talk to our listeners about what you do as an artist, because it's very unique. Like there's a lot of people that do stuff with wood, and I'm not going to give too much away because I want you to talk about it. Yours is definitely the upper echelon and levels above what I see other people do. So tell us what exactly you do.
Well, I kind of started by accident through kind of in crafts with my kids, but what I basically do is I kind of look for patterns in the wood, and I think a lot of people do this, is see patterns in either wood or tile or even in the clouds, and I kind of pick those out, and then I'll enhance them with some wood burning and burn lines, and then use colored stains to color it, and then I try to incorporate a large amount of the wood pattern and grain into the picture itself. And it's just kind of an idea I had for a few years. I had always enjoyed working with wood and doing arts and crafts. So it kind of worked out really good to put some of it to work, and they just turned out better than I really expected them to be. I'd always enjoyed art and had actually won a few awards in high school, but was kind of pushed more toward math and computer science, which I was also very good at. So now parents are.
Now I saw that you were born in Idaho, was it? But you've lived most of your life in Colorado.
I was born in Idaho, and we moved around a little bit. It seems like we lived in Kansas, Missouri for a little while, then in Oregon, back to Idaho, and then moved out here to Colorado when I was about 12 years old or so, 11, 12 years old, and I'd lived out here pretty much since then. With a couple of years spent up in Wyoming after high school, and going to a little junior college up there.
Did you grow up in an artistic family? You said that you had won some awards when you were in high school, but were you surrounded by the arts as a child, or is that something you just picked up on your own?
Yeah, not really. My family really wasn't into arts too much, but I kind of picked it up as, I think my mom kind of encouraged it because it kept me busy. I was an active child and needed a lot of things to keep my attention, I think, easily bored. So doing little art projects. So I did as a kid, a lot of drawings and making things out of, anything I could find around the house, kind of almost abstract little projects, gluing things together and stuff. Then in high school, I won a couple of awards for art that, I was kind of the kid that didn't follow directions real well, but my stuff had turned out really nice. And so it seems like after my freshman year with a new teacher, my sophomore year, she put me in with the seniors where I could just do whatever I wanted. I had to do 12 projects for the year, and I think she gave me the award that year for art. Just letting me kind of cut loose.
How did you decide to pursue this full time? Because you actually had a whole other occupation career before you did this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I did computer work. I was used to always win the math award, and I was real good at computer science. So I'd taken a couple of years of college, studied mostly math and computer science classes, and then worked in the IT field for a lot of years. And I did enjoy that, and I was really good at it. But I think I got to a point where, kind of been there, done that, and getting bored with it. And I really didn't want to move up into management. I'd managed small groups of people and some projects and stuff. And I mentioned earlier that sitting in meetings and stuff like that just kind of got to the point where I was, I think, bored with it. And the art kind of came along, like I said, through doing arts and crafts with my kids. And as I got older, we did more complicated things. And then I eventually bought them wood burners. And I kind of, alongside them, they were burning some little boxes and stuff for gifts. And I kind of found some pieces of wood and we're just playing around and just kind of caught my fancy as, so here's something I can kind of, very different that I can pursue and enjoy myself.
What I like about your art, first of all, there's something for everyone. So you definitely need to take a moment and go to Fritz's website. But you go from the very whimsical to like very exquisite art. It's kind of abstract, but the theme that runs throughout it mostly that I see is that the whole thing with nature. You're obviously very connected to nature and enjoy nature. And a lot of it has to do with the animal world, but also the natural world just in general.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy, I've always enjoyed animals. I'm a real dog person. I've always had dogs and I enjoy a lot of the animals. And I try, most of my art's kind of happy. I enjoy making kind of a little bit humorous art and put a smile on people's faces. So I've always been one to try and make people laugh. Not a real class clown, but kind of one of the acting characters there in the background,
I know that feeling.
At times disruptive, but not in a bad way.
Right. Yeah, your stuff is really amazing. I was the one I was looking at, now I got to find it. It was a touch of sunset.
Yeah, that one was done on wood flooring.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay. Because it almost looks like steps. So can you describe like what it is? And
yeah, it's been some wood flooring in our house, and I decided that might be interesting to put some pieces together and burn on that. So I snuck some pieces out to the garage and kind of glued them together. Picked some pieces that kind of gave me a nice background, and then burned on it and added just a touch of stain. And so it gave kind of a different perspective. I did 5 or 6 different ones of those, and I hope to get back and do a few more, but they were kind of fun and interesting,
I love the way that tree is bending. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Yeah, this is fun. That's a phenomenal piece.
It's actually my hand. The tree kind of forms a hand there.
Oh, okay. Oh, it does. I didn't even notice that. It does.
And hence the touch of sunset. So it's kind of reaching out there to touch the sun.
I think we saw this piece down at the Denver Art Society. Wasn't that there for a little bit, or is it still there?
Yeah, I think it's still down there, yeah.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun piece, and it took a long time to glue the boards together just how I wanted them. And it seems like any time you try something new, it takes you a long time, but, it's just kind of that learning new stuff, exploring things that makes the art fun, and when I kind of got tired of my old job and the more I did the art, I kind of understand how some of those people who are singers or artists, how they, just feel that that's what they have to do, that you kind of get this urging that doing anything else isn't going to satisfy you, that you have to pursue this and kind of see where it goes.
How long have you been doing this full time?
I've been doing about 10 years now.
Okay.
Full time, and we're pretty much full time. Right now I kind of help take care of my mother part of the time, and so that kind of cuts into me getting some of the art done, but it's basically kind of supporting me.
So do you have multiple projects going on at any given time?
Yeah, I usually have anywhere from 5 to 10 pictures in progress. Like anything, it seems like sometimes you get to a point where you kind of stall, and I find it best to move on to something else and come back to it later, whether there's a part of it that I a lot of times I'll sketch them out first in pencil so that I can try and incorporate them with the wood. And sometimes things just look a little off to me, or I'm not happy with them, and so I like to leave them, come back later. And then also when I'm adding things like the stain, I also like to kind of work with several pieces at once. That way, when I'm mixing reds, I can go through and do all my reds and give them a little time to dry while I'm working on the next one. And so I usually have about 4 of them that are going through, kind of on the conveyor.
What kind of stuff are you working on right now?
Gosh, I have a variety of things. I have some kind of character animals, the little whimsical bears and a chicken. And then I've got a couple of the tree people, which were kind of drawings I used to do in some of my meetings that got boring. I would sketch trees on a notepad I'd take with me, and they kind of started to look like people. And so that's where those kind of come from. Then I've got a custom piece I need to get working on for a couple up in Montana. I've done some pieces for. And,
do you get a lot of commissions?
I've had quite a few. Well, I guess not a ton, but I get a lot of people asking about them. But they're not. A lot of times when people want dogs done, they don't realize they're kind of expensive to do. They're time consuming, and so sometimes they end up a little pricey. But just enough to kind of keep me busy. I'm hoping to do some more, but sometimes those are a little stressful. You feel like you need to do a really good job for them, and I've never had anybody dissatisfied with them, but I always stress about it.
Yeah.
Right. When I used to shoot weddings, it was the same thing. It was like, that would just stress me out because, it's like a one-time event. I can't recapture this. So I'd lose sleep over it. I really didn't like doing those, but like other kind of photography, but weddings was just like killed me. So I don't do very many.
I find myself trying to talk people into letting me do a custom piece for them. And then after I get it, it's like, what did I do that for? Talk them into something I already had done.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man. So you work in different scales. I mean, I've seen different sizes of pieces that you had exhibiting down at the Denver Art Society, but it seems like you have some large scale stuff, some small scale stuff, or is it kind of in between?
Yeah, it kind of goes all over the place. I enjoy making the large pieces because they kind of have a wow factor, when people look at them and stuff. But the small pieces are fun too, especially for when I'm demonstrating and want to kind of show people. And sometimes I just find a piece of wood, kind of depends on the piece of wood, that just immediately looks like something and tickles my fancy. And so I just have to do it, even if I've had pieces that I kind of thought would maybe never sell or but for whatever reason, I just really wanted to see it done, kind of in my head. And so there are those pieces that I try and explain to people that you just have to do. And it's funny, though, most of them end up selling to somebody. There's always somebody out there that appreciates it,
What's a large scale piece? Like how large do you work?
Well, some of the bigger pieces I've had are around, 3 feet by 4 feet, that size. And so those end up being hard to haul around. And then sometimes it's hard to find galleries that want to show them because they take up, a lot of wall space. But I enjoy doing them, and they're a lot of fun. And I think they're almost sometimes easier burning because you don't have to make real small detailed burns. But then the staining becomes harder because you got a larger area and have to work quickly so you don't get stain lines.
That makes sense. I didn't even think about that. I actually thought that those large pieces, as far as burning them, would be difficult too, but not, huh?
Well, they can be time consuming, but I kind of enjoy burning them because the scale's so bigger, so you can make big lines and it's easier to cover up mistakes, I think. And so I don't know, there's just something kind of fun, I think, working with the big ones, and you have to kind of step back and look at them, though.
Yeah, I bet you do a lot of that. And so are you working, like you have them on an easel when you're doing this?
Yeah, I've kind of created a couple big easels in my garage that I prop them up against, and that way I can kind of work on them. Because my burners, I have a couple 6-foot cords, but sometimes I have to kind of hold my burner or put it on a chair so that I can reach parts of the picture. And it seems like an easel makes that easier. I do have a big table, too, that I can kind of walk around all the sides on so I can kind of reach in when you're burning in the middle. But I've had pieces I've put actually kind of on the floor and crawled on top of them, to get that down so I can burn and get the detail right,
You haven't decided to go the route of Vance Kirkland then? He had that whole pulley system that enabled him to lay down and then put his paint on his canvases. With
Oh yeah, I think I've
pol-
seen that.
yeah, with pulleys and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't imagine hanging for hours on end, but pretty ingenious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of sometimes when when I was kind of arranging my garage, I kind of thought about everything in the different ways that I work with stuff, and so I've got it kind of in a pretty good situation now. I feel bad for my wife because my garage hasn't seen a car in 10 years, but it makes for a nice work area for me.
Sacrifices must be made for the art.
My father's a woodworker. He actually lives over there in Parker, and it's the same scenario. I don't know that they ever get to park a car in their garage because all his woodworking tools take up the vast majority of it. So,
And kind of when you were asking about the different size pieces, the little bit of pack rack comes out in me too, that I hate to throw any little piece of wood away. So there's always some potential in there somewhere.
Spoken like a true artist.
So I'm looking at your website front page, and the big deer on the big stag deer on the front with the aspens. I would assume that the burn is all the aspens and everything, and all the outlines and the probably the fur of the deer. Is that correct? Or
it's an elk, but
okay,
I burn all the lines and the aspens. Everything that the piece was a piece of oak plywood. And I kind of had that great pattern for his face, horns. And I do a little bit of shading on the nose, but most of it's just line work, a lot of burned lines. Then with the stains, I used about 3 to 5 colors, different colors of brown, kind of blending on the elk to get the colors right, And a lot of times I'll try and keep a small piece of the board so I can test the stains before I put them on, just because get different variations on wood,
Right. That's so intricate. I can't even imagine how long that is. How big a piece is that?
Now, see, that was one of the big ones. That was 4 feet square. It was a feet of plywood. And, the pattern, a lot of times I'll be at Home Depot and I'll pull full sheets of plywood down. I'll be looking at them. And that one right away kind of looked like an elk in the woods, It kind of had horns and an outline of a face. And you kind of visualized it. But once I got it burned and done and kind of stood back and looked at it, it was kind of one of those kind of like, wow, did I really do that? This turned out really nicer than I had expected. And I've been fortunate that I have quite a few pieces that have turned out that way. I kind of see them in my mind, but I get them done and stand back and it's like, wow, that really turned out nice.
Yeah, that's stunning. I mean, it's a beautiful piece.
It really is.
Like I said, just really intricate. Sorry, Todd.
No, that's all right. I mean, it's exquisite. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, the wood just really worked good with that. And it gets it what I call kind of a woodsy warmth. That everybody kind of likes a nice piece of stained wood, the wood pattern. There's something calming about it and comforting. And it just worked really good through his face and just gave him I looked at hundreds of pictures of elk before I found one. I actually used 2 different pictures. One was an elk that was already shot. It was like a record-breaking elk, I think, in Minnesota. But it had such a strong jawbone and head that I really loved the shape of its face. Yeah, it just really turned out better than I expected. So I really love that piece.
And the 2 pieces on the side, and you did this deliberately on your front page, but you have the before and after shot, and it's just amazing. Like if you just looked at the before, you might not see it. Like I probably wouldn't see it, but once you see it done, then it just like the before picture like jumps right out at you. Like it was meant to be, that rabbit or the deer. It's amazing that how you use the line specifically and how you see it. So great eye. I'm just amazed at it.
Well, thank you. Well, that's what I was saying. I think I kind of grew up as one of those kids that got easily bored in class. I had real good grades for a long time, but I think I get distracted and look at things. And also I attribute to my dad growing up. He loved that fake wood paneling that came out in the 70s. And every time we moved somewhere, he had to put that up. And that always had patterns and faces and stuff in it. And so I kind of grew up around that, picking things out of the woodwork.
That gave me such a visual right there of being in my grandparents' house back in Ohio and seeing that old wood paneling and doing the exact same thing, looking up in there and you'd see shapes and faces and and stuff in the paneling as you're, going to bed at night, laying there in the Midwestern humidity and heat.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We had paneling in our house too, so don't feel bad. Thanks, Dad.
I love that you put the before and after of a couple of your pieces in there, because I think it gives you even more of an appreciation of your vision and how you see things. And I think that's, I don't know that everybody would think about doing that, but
yeah, some of my early pieces I didn't get before pictures of, and I've got some that I need to sort out. And of course, some of those I take myself, so I need to get to be a better photographer. As I have some before pictures that are just too fuzzy to really display. But I might see if I can sharpen them up and put them out. But it kind of gives you a perspective of the steps.
So how do you go about selling your art then, Fritz? Is it mostly off your website? Do you show in a lot of galleries? I know you're down at the Denver Art Society because that's how I found you.
Yeah. So right now I'm showing mostly just in galleries and then online, and that's been working pretty good. I did for a lot of years do the outdoor shows, which I kind of enjoyed, but it seems like they got so there were so many of them, and so many of them would expand kind of beyond the point of being a good art show for everybody. And then they're a lot of work too. So I kind of decided to try and get away from that and move toward the galleries. And I'd like to eventually, here hopefully in the near future, find a kind of a studio gallery where I could, kind of work in the back or even live in the back, and then have a gallery in the front, kind of a working studio gallery.
That'd be pretty ideal. So how many galleries are you in currently?
Right now, I've got stuff in about 4 galleries around Denver, up in Boulder, Lafayette, a little gallery down on Colfax, and then at the Denver Art Society. I hope to expand more and find some more galleries, but it seems like sometimes I have a hard time keeping up a supply of original artwork. The other thing is finding a good match at a gallery for my work has been kind of difficult too, because I get galleries that seem to say, oh, we like the wildlife or the bears or something, and say, can you make 4 more bears, and it's kind of like it doesn't really work like that for me. I don't have a piece that looks like a bear right now, and I don't want to force it, but that doesn't seem to turn out very well. It seems to work best for me to, whatever I see in the wood that tickles my fancy, is do that one, and somebody will buy it. The galleries have been kind of, sometimes when they're run by other people, have been a little bit picky about what they want and what they don't want, and so it'd be nice to have a place where I could just do whatever I wanted, which is kind of the Denver Art Society works a lot like that.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of people that find you in the gallery and then go to your website and look at your other stuff? I should ask this, is most of the stuff that you create, does that almost immediately go to one of these galleries, or do you always have stock on hand of stuff that you're working on or have just completed?
Yeah, usually when I complete something, I usually try and get it into one of the galleries right away and, show it where I can. And sometimes I'll put it online and promote it that way. And I've had some fairly lucky sales of people buying stuff right when it gets done, or sometimes even in the process, which is always nice. That's where I was kind of saying I need to get better with the social media a little bit and get stuff out there a little more frequently than I do. I go through little spurts,
I can relate to that.
So do most galleries want a minimum number of pieces from an artist, maybe from anybody, or?
Well, it just seemed like when I was kind of shopping galleries is they usually kind of have in mind what they're looking for, and everything from size to price. And they're kind of strong-willed people, and I understand that they're wanting to make money themselves, so they can be very particular. And so sometimes it's hard for me to convince them that these pieces will sell. They seem to frown upon some of the goofier stuff I do for some reason, but that stuff sells great. The people love it, and so they shy away from that and want more of the natural wildlife and stuff. And so sometimes I just don't. And that stuff sells pretty quickly too. So sometimes I just don't have enough to give to them, and it's been kind of discourageable to work with the galleries, but every once in a while you find a nice one. And so I think you just have to keep plugging along and looking for the right place.
Yeah, and I've heard like if you're in a gallery and then in some galleries when you leave to get back in is really impossible because they've already got their kind of set artists and you almost have to wait for somebody else to leave or die or whatever before you can get back in. I was just kind of recalling our interview with Peggy Detmers, and she left she had a big commission from Kevin Costner, so she left the galleries to focus on that because the pieces were so big. When that was over and she was trying to get back in those galleries, she's been having a little bit of difficulty, and plus she needs to like build up her numbers of pieces, and she does sculpture, so that's a little bit different too. But so I was just kind of curious if you had that same kind of experience. But
so the galleries are it's a long process to go visit them and kind of see what they have, and some of them are a little standoffish, which I understand. There's a lot of good art out there, and so sometimes you almost need to get to know somebody who's already in the gallery or some way to kind of get introduced. It seems like I've been fairly lucky with some of the galleries I've been in, with them finding my work and coming to me. So there again is where I need to get a little bit more out on social media and find some places. But then you got to kind of scrutinize the galleries too and make sure that if they take your art, they're going to be able to sell it,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah,
it's
because
cool
that's their job. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's cool that they're seeking you out at times and like, oh yeah, I definitely would like to, have these pieces in my gallery, and I could definitely sell some of this. I bet you said that those whimsical pieces tend to do really well, and I could totally see that. I would bet that people just love all those animals that you do, and that would be a big seller, especially during the summertime when you get people coming through from other places and they want a piece of Colorado. I could totally see those selling well.
Yeah, I like I said, some of the I guess seasoned or trained artists seem to frown on those and constantly tell me to kind of veer away from them. But I have so much fun doing them, and the people like them. And I need to get a custom page on my website because I've probably done a dozen different dogs for people, and they've all been ecstatic over them. They turned out really well. And I try and capture a little bit of the dog's personality, which I think I've done well at too. And so those have been a lot of fun. I kind of think anything that people like. I think I had a teacher that kind of told me that if you work really hard on your art and kind of scrutinize over it to the point where you're really happy with it, there'll be other people who will like it too. So
yeah. I'm sure some gallerist told Andy Warhol, I don't know, the Campbell soup thing, I don't know if it's going to sell.
Yeah.
It's funny to me that people, well, I guess if they go to your page and they're just they don't spend much time with it, they're just seeing the whimsical animals that you do. But the tree people and some of the, like the piece that's called Rebirth, I love that kind of whole series with the trees and stuff that you've done. And I think those are exquisite. Those are just beautiful. And in the same vein, that one we were talking about earlier, that A Touch of Sunset, I mean, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I enjoy kind of doing those. I do, I guess I do a lot of doodling. Like I said, when I used to be in meetings, I do doodling and drawing and stuff. So I keep kind of a notebook of ideas and pictures I kind of jot down. And so I kind of, early on, I wanted to kind of stay away from the traditional of just, an animal standing there, or something, a tree, and so I try and work with either the titles or something in the picture to make it a little bit unique and different. Otherwise, I won't do the piece, unless I've got a few pieces that I kind of have plans for, and they look like something, but I just haven't figured out the little hook I want on them yet.
Right.
Well, and I like that you offer not only the whimsical stuff and some of the more fine art stuff, but you also, in addition to the original pieces that you offer, you're also doing prints as well.
Yeah, and I early on when I was contemplating leaving my IT job and was doing a little bit of art, I got about 25 pictures done and did the little art show down in Denver. And my other job was paying me really well, and so I knew it was going to be a little bit of a shock to switch over to being an artist, and wanted to try and hit the ground running. And most of the successful artists I talked to told me do prints. Not everybody can afford originals, and they said if you want to be able to make it, sell prints. And I kind of find that to be true. I've sold a lot of them. There's a lot of people that enjoy my art and wouldn't probably be able to afford the originals or want to. So the print's a nice option for people to buy and keep on a lower budget and be able to enjoy and share the art.
And with those prints, you do editions of those, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. Although I've thought about just opening it up, as I'd read an interesting article that said if Ansel Adams had done limited editions, nobody'd know who he was today. And, it kind of makes a good point that, if you just open it up, I don't know if I'd want to sell millions of them in, a department store or anything like that, but there's been a few of them I've sold, the 500 limit or whatever, and they were popular, and it's still kind of a low number. So I don't know. I've heard of other artists just opening it up a little further or something, but it's kind of one of those debatable things. Some people do like to have them numbered and limited.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that.
Yeah, it gives a little, it established some of value in a sense that it's, it's worth this instead of like I can buy this 5 years from now and it'll still be available, that kind of deal. But so it gives, I think what it does though is if you had some pieces that were limited and then you had others that were a little broader, it gives you price points for both. Maybe you sell the ones that are kind of wide open at a lesser market, getting the people that just want a entry level kind of stuff, and then maybe a little higher. I don't know. That's, one way to look at it, I guess, but I could see, it's a personal preference, right? But you're trying to figure it out and make the right decision. So
yeah, it's kind of one of those things I've been debating a lot lately. The other thing is if you want to go with a kind of print on demand where people can just say, I want one, you have a place to print it off and ship it to them. Well, if you're going to sign it, it's got to come to you first. And so that's one of the other things, I have the younger generation, my kids and some of the younger artists saying, oh, quit signing them, quit numbering, just, let people order them online and then have them shipped right away, which is tempting to do. So I've been kind of looking at that, but I don't know. I might, just like you said, do it with certain select pictures that I think are more of just kind of the whimsical or the little ones. I get a lot of pictures that people like to put in kids' rooms. So getting people all the time telling me, oh, we got 10 of your pictures in our kids' room, And I said, oh, that's fine, it's kids' art.
So do you print your own or do you have somebody else print them, the prints?
I have somebody else print them. I've thought about printing them my own, but I don't know. It seems like I thought with printers when I did IT work for so long that I didn't know if I wanted to take on all that.
Yeah.
That mess. And although recently it seems like I've been having a hard time needing to find a new printer. My printer kind of retired and left his business to somebody who he'd been working with, and then they've kind of changed it, and it hasn't been doing quite the quality that they used to, I think.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find that because people, it's same with restaurants, they change ownership and the new owner just not quite as good, or it's different, and so I totally get it. And printing is it's very visual. So if you don't have an eye for certain prints or how to adjust the different color parameters, it can be problematic. Yeah.
And even some of the good established and good reputation print shops around town, I've seen prints come, different orders come in for artist friends of mine and look totally different. The shades, the printers get hot, they get overworked, and so it's really hard to get a consistency from somebody. And if you've still got the original around, I've had times where I had to take the prints back because I still had the original showing and the prints were so far off in color. People were looking at the original and saying, oh, why didn't it look like that?
Right. No, I totally get it.
So you offer different sizes or different types of prints? Is that what I saw on your website?
I offer a few different sizes on some of them. Some of my more popular prints I will, and from my bigger pieces, sometimes I'll offer a larger, the Giglet, the higher resolution, and on nicer paper, usually on archival paper. And then I offer a lot of them on just the small kind of a picture frame size print. I think I only offer about 7 or 8 of my bigger pieces as Giglets, and they're a little harder to sell. But I may try and expand that a little bit if I can find a good print shop. But like I said, it just seems to be kind of time consuming to go down and get proofs done and then get them printed and bring them home, sign them. Kind of leaning toward trying to find a way to do that more online so I can concentrate on original stuff.
Makes sense. So what are the price points for your prints?
My prints run from about $40 for the small ones. The higher resolution gigles run up to about, I think, 260 for some of the bigger ones.
Okay.
Those the gigles are on archival print paper, and so they're a nice quality.
And people can purchase those directly through your website?
Yes.
And then as far as original work is concerned, where does that price point start, and where does that go?
Yeah, my original stuff usually starts around $300 or $400 for the real small pieces, and goes all the way up to several thousand for some of the bigger pieces. Those are always hard to price too, because you of course, when something comes out and you're really happy with it, you want to just price it through the roof, but you can't always do that, and sometimes a piece just takes a little bit more time for whatever reason, and but it's really not more detailed. It's more my inefficiency than the picture itself, and so I try and base it kind of on the work, on how detailed it is, the size, and then I also a little bit with the frame, because I make the originals. I make almost all the frames out of wood, just because it's hard to find nice wood frames, and they're very expensive when I do find them. So
you really offer something at every price point. It sounds like on those bigger pieces, if somebody's interested in a bit larger piece but doesn't necessarily have the cash up front, do you work a payment plan with people? Was that something that you would do?
Yeah, I've done that several times with people where they've made monthly payments on something, and then once it's paid off, I deliver it to them and get it to them. And so I'm very flexible and try and work with people and see what I can do for them. Sometimes if people like something that's out of their price range, I usually can't duplicate anything, and I don't really like to, but sometimes I'll see if I can come up with a similar idea or something kind of close. And so I've had several times where people wanted something that had already been sold, or like you said, in a bigger size or a smaller size, and I was able to coax them into a custom piece.
Do you have people that actually are like collectors of yours that call you up and say, "Hey, Fritz, what have you been working on? You got anything new you can like send me a picture of or anything?"
Yeah, I think I have a small list of probably about 9 or 10 people in the area that own multiple pictures and like to see what I have coming up, kind of keep track of me on social media and stuff. And I've had a couple people I've actually taken stuff over to their house and showed them things. I have an interesting story. When I first started, I had a guy call me up, and like I said, at the time I was working IT and making real good money, so I didn't need the money for the art or anything, but I had a guy call me up and wanted me to bring art up to his house up in Evergreen, and thought he might want to buy some pieces, and I'm kind of like, really, he had to kind of really talk me into it. And I finally said, well, I could come up this weekend and bring them. And he said, oh, bring those big ones, the big ones you had here. He had just had somebody give him my card and explain them to him. He hadn't seen any of them. But I went up, and he had this huge house up there with the gates, that open and asked to let you in, and the huge patio set up for entertaining hundreds of people, and just this huge house. And he ended up buying 3 or 4 big pictures, which is, he wanted to see them kind of held up on the wall, and thousands of dollars worth. And so it turned out to be really nice, but I always felt kind of silly that I was kind of, when this guy called me, I was kind of, well, I don't know if I can come up and bring him to your house.
It's a crapshoot.
Right? It is kind of a crapshoot, because you don't know, like, am I going to waste all of this time and, driving up in the hills and bringing all this art and, and
yeah, because I guess at first I thought he just wanted to maybe see one of them, but then he had to keep telling me, I'm very, very interested, in seeing these. I had I think it was a decorator that he knew to help decorate his house, and she told him, ask him to bring this one up and this one up, and he said, anything else big you got, that you might think it. He had kind of his real cabin, kind of a lodge-looking house. He bought a big moose picture I had, and I think a buffalo, some giraffes, and like I said, it was a good day for me. So
that's awesome. Well, I guess next time when somebody calls you definitely won't think twice about loading up the car with art, right?
Yeah. I'm there.
Oh, that's funny.
Didn't somebody tell us about going to like a house party and they brought their artwork, like they were invited, and there was like almost like a dinner show? Like
Yeah, that was Bob.
Was that
Ragan.
Bob? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that. Then it sounded, or I thought of that, and it was like, I think we had that discussion. Yep. But yeah.
But I could totally see that. I mean, if you're looking to decorate your house and you have a house up in the hills and you're, like I said, Fritz, your stuff is beautiful. I could totally see that, in somebody's mountain house or what have you. And have you sold art off your Facebook or other social media? Has people, found your page or been referred to your page?
Through Facebook. I've been doing Instagram just this last year, and I need to get a little more active with that. But I've had a lot of people on Facebook inquire about pieces, and sometimes they're just looking for a print, or I do offer framed prints that I kind of laminate and frame for them too, which is another option. So it's brought a lot of interest, and I've had a couple custom pieces that people have seen from my Facebook posts.
So you're on Instagram and Facebook. Are those pretty much the two platforms that you do social media?
Yeah, that's all I've been doing now, and I figured I'll wait till I get better at those before I add any more.
Well, those seem to be the big ones, and when we talk to other artists, they've made sales just like you were talking about off their posts, and then people actually searching them out once they know that you're out there. So I think it's pretty pertinent that you be posting on a pretty regular basis, because boy, we've heard a lot of successful stories to that, and it's cool to hear that you two have also had sales off of that.
Yeah, I think I kind of quit my job and started the art stuff right as the art world was kind of changing with all the online stuff, and it's been kind of disruptive to the galleries and the art shows and everything, that the online, because that way when you sell it online, you don't end up having to share a commission, with anybody, and so it appeals quite a bit to the artists.
What is this whole pandemic thing? How has that affected your art business? Has it slowed things down? Has things picked up?
Yeah, it's kind of slowed it down to, it went right to a stop there, the middle of March. We did March 1st Friday, and I had a real good night there, and it'd been really good start to the year for me. Real busy, but then it just went all to a screeching halt. All the galleries closed, and of course no First Fridays or anything. So it really been nothing there for a while, and until I recently had a couple inquiries about doing some custom work. So I got this one that I'm doing now, and still talking to another person. And I've had a couple inquiries too about some existing work that I have, and I'm hoping they're talking like we can open up the gallery down on Santa Fe. I think has opened up limited number of people, and so I might see if I can meet them down there and start promoting a little bit more, see if I can get a few sales here. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's hit the art community pretty hard. There's not the art districts tried to do a kind of a virtual first Friday and a virtual third Friday, and you see a lot of the artists sign up to watch it and take part in it, but I don't see as they've sold a lot through that, small things.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's trying to pivot and try to figure out how they continue to do what they're doing, but in a different way in this time. I've seen there was an article the other day about how galleries are rethinking their outside spaces so that they can show more art in their storefronts, since people haven't been able to go inside, or it'll be limited. I know myself, I like to see the piece, in person. Like, I appreciate your website and everything that I see on there. But, the reason I reached out to you is because I saw it in person, and it was, just fantastic.
Yeah, it seems like my art sells a lot better in person. So selling originals online are a little bit harder. Almost always the people want to see them first. I think I've only had 3 or 4 sales where the people didn't see the actual piece before they bought it.
Well, and I can attest, because we went, like we said earlier, I went to that Denver Art Society, and I was really taken from your stuff. I mean, just seeing it, I was just wowed by it. It's really impressive to see it live. So I totally understand why people do that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to capture it's got just a little bit of a 3D effect to it, and like I said, the wood texture kind of gives you kind of that woodsy warmth to see it in person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of art to see at that Denver Art Society, and if people have never been there, it's down in the art district in Santa Fe, walking through there, there's probably maybe 40 artists in that space, maybe more.
That's right in there, 40 some artists. And it's a fun place. I enjoy being there. I get a lot of people tell me I need to be in a nicer gallery, but I really enjoy the people there. And I love looking at all the art that they create and kind of seeing some of the artists develop, really right before your eyes within, a couple of years when they start and they start getting more serious about it. And I think just being around other artists and getting input, that you can really see an improvement in their work over a course of time.
I could see that being pretty inspiring, and that seems like a pretty close-knit community in that gallery space. It's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice group of people, and I kind of enjoyed that. I was with a group that was down where the VFW is now for a long time until the VFW bought it, and then moved in with these guys. And I do kind of like the community kind of atmosphere. If I ever kind of found my own studio gallery, I'd probably hope to be able to invite a few other artists, come join me and not just show my work, but have a little bit of variety and different artists.
Now, you live in Castle Rock, correct?
Yeah.
Are there many galleries left in that downtown area right now?
I think we don't have any galleries that I know of right now. It seems like we have galleries popping up all the time. And we had one through Art Guild down here for about 3 years that did pretty well. And I sold a lot of art through that. But we just had a hard time. The rent was pretty high. And then we were having a hard time getting people committed we were trying to run it kind of as a co-op. But we had a lot of the members that would just blow off their work shift and call some of us other members and ask, can you cover for me? And until, several of us got fed up. And when the lease came up, we didn't want to renew it. So we kind of let it go. But we keep trying. So I keep hoping eventually we'll get a decent gallery down here. We had one at the outlets for a while too. And I did surprisingly well down there, that they had a little art supply store and they opened up a gallery next to it, and the local art guild kind of featured artwork there. And I think I sold an original every month out of that place.
Wow.
Until they closed it. Yeah. And there's people that didn't know they wanted to buy. I think that's the other thing with my art is I sell it to a lot of people who don't realize they're looking for a piece of art. They see something that kind of tickles their fancy and, it's different, and they just have to buy it, and that was the case down there. I had a couple one day walk in and say, they're just looking, they're not interested. And then I said, that's fine. I was demonstrating, doing a little wood burning, and they came over and looked through my portfolio, and next thing I know, I have my wife bringing things down from the house so they can look at it, and they ended up being one of my kind of collectors. I think they have three pieces now over in Park. And but yeah, she reassured me when she walked in there that they weren't looking for any art; they were just checking it out.
They may not be looking, but she should be selling.
So it is kind of nice to let people see my work, and it definitely helps to sell it. If I'm there, and so I enjoy the first Fridays because I get people coming through and saying hi to me, and the people who followed kind of my artwork, and sometimes people that I guess I should know, so I just act like I know everybody, that I remember them.
Yeah.
They bought something 2 years ago, and of course have changed their hair and everything else, but I try and remember them if I can.
In that Denver Art Society on a first Friday, holy cow, it's wall to wall people. Like, it's hard to even move around in that place, and it's a big place, but they pack that place full.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've had other artists that when I first started getting my stuff down there and showing it, they said, you're not going to like that. It's it's crowded. It's a bunch of young people. They're drunk. And it's like, I love it. It's just, it's high energy and it's happy. And so I don't know, I kind of enjoy doing it. And I talk to a lot of people. I like showing my work. And I usually try and bring a piece or two down that I haven't done anything on with knots in it, and get ideas from people, which is very fun and humorous too, to get different people's perspectives on a piece of wood.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I imagine other people see different things, so you can kind of like, I don't see that, but now I do, or I wouldn't have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a way of kind of engaging them, and like I said, there's a lot of people who used to have looked around and seen patterns in their tile in their bathroom or wood panels at home, and so when they come out and some of them get so enthusiastic, they got to tell me exactly how the picture they see needs to be done. And I hate to tell them that a lot of times I already got a plan for it, and I'm really stubborn about changing.
Hey, here's your piece. What'd you think? It's not what I thought it was. No, this is what you told me.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Do you find that people really want to talk with the artists? They want to talk to you. They want to know about, they want to know about a particular piece, kind of like what we're doing right now, but that people really desire that face-to-face interaction with an artist?
Yeah, some of them do. There's a lot of them that do, and I kind of enjoy that. When they come down and they talk to me and ask me about different pieces and take an interest, and especially if they buy something, because then you feel like it's kind of gone. It's like one of your kids. It's gone to a good home, and they're going to take care of it. I've also had a gal buy some one time who I got the idea that she fancied herself a collector, and I just envisioned she's picking out these pieces that are going to be in a closet somewhere in her mansion for years, and that kind of irritated me because she's trying to pick out some pieces she thought was good, but they really were like talking to her. She just wanted to own some, just in case, I guess.
Is she sitting in her kitchen table every morning looking at the obituaries, looking for Fritz's name? These things are going to be skyrocket. I know it.
Could be. But yeah, I just remember that kind of seems like she bought 2 or 3 pieces, and when I kind of realized that she wasn't like buying something that really touched her, I kind of directed her toward a couple pieces that I'd had hanging for a while and thought maybe they weren't as good as I thought, and I kind of directed her that way. But it seems like she took one that I was kind of sad to see go, because I like I said, I kind of envision it being somewhere that nobody's enjoying it.
Right, yeah. Here, let me direct you this way. These are my best pieces. These would be the collector's items.
And then I had a real heartening story. Earlier this year, I had a gal down at the Denver Art Society see my stuff, and she was like, "Oh my God, I bought one of your pieces of art down in Florida." And I said, "You're kidding?" And she said, "No, it was one of my little dog pieces. It was just a print in a frame, but she'd picked it up at the thrift shop down in Florida somewhere." And she says, "I hope you're not insulted by that." And I said, "Well, I'm just glad it didn't go in the trash. At least they passed it on, but she thought it was the bargain of the year. So that was also, entertaining too. And then it was just tickled that she ran into me, here in Colorado, from finding it down there in Florida.
That is a cool story.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of demos of your work? I know that I think I saw on your website that you do demonstrations. Does that help sell art when you do those things?
I think it does. People enjoy seeing me do it and watching me. And so I usually try and first Friday sometimes get a little crowded, but a lot of times bring my equipment down and I kind of set it up like I'm demonstrating, but I get chatty and talking with people, and I try and bring something simple, because you don't want to be working on, your big masterpiece while a bunch of people are watching you over your shoulder. But I do enjoy going down and working on stuff on first and third Fridays down at the galleries. And like I said, I think it's helped me sell some pieces. People kind of seeing the process, and a lot of people my age remember the wood burners when they were kids growing up. We all got one in high school or something and burned our fingers and swore to never do it again. It is kind of that they like to see it and see that it can actually be used to make pretty good art. I had somebody one time tell me they saw my sign that said fine wood burning art, and they said it was hard for me to imagine wood burning as fine art, but they said you do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, I remember me wood burning I suppose I must have been in middle school. Yeah, my stuff didn't look like yours. And obviously I kind of gave up and said, "Oh, I'm not very good at this." But I had one too. Yeah, you just, like every kid, I think, in my generation had some kind of wood burning kit of some sort.
Yeah.
So as we continue down this path of this pandemic, at least for the time being, and all the crazy economic fallout. Are you trying to facilitate some different things? I know you're busy taking care of your mom, you said, but are there some things in your business that you're trying to facilitate that may look different because of what's going on now?
Well, I am just trying to get myself a little bit organized. I've got a lot of photographs of my work. Like I said, I've got some of it out there online, before and after pictures. So I've been trying to get some of that together to do more before and after and do some updates to my website, maybe show some of my custom work. And I think I always wanted to kind of go online more, but I'll probably push that until the galleries get to the point where, we can show more in them. But I think I've got a lot of content I can show. I just need to get myself organized and arranged so that I can do that.
I think that's the problem for every artist, is trying to get their self organized and get all those little things, all those little tasks done that, kind of slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of groups trying to do virtual art tours and shows, but I tried to sit through one of those the other day, and it was hard for me, an artist, to even sit through it for too long, So I'm thinking just individually, short and sweet, on Facebook and Instagram, maybe do a couple day theme or do some work in progress and try and get people to tune back in to see, where it's going and how it's progressing along.
Have you thought about doing any kind of like online, like demos?
I thought about that, and then I need to get it set up. I set up so that it could kind of time lapse it, so I could speed it up, or kind of plan it out so that I, burn quickly and don't goof off as much. I tend to, my way of doing anything in my life is I work quickly when I'm working, but I tend to take a lot of breaks and, like I said, get easily distracted.
I can relate to that.
I'm trying to think of a good way to do that. And I was thinking of just taking, snapshots and then blending them together, in a little kind of a slideshow video that kind of show up progressing a little bit at a time. Might be easier than trying to film myself doing it. I have a tendency to move my board to a position that's comfortable for me to burn in. So I don't really have it in a set position, and that would make it kind of difficult if I was trying to film it, to keep it upright,
Right. Let me ask you this. I haven't asked this question in a while, actually, and probably at least the last 3 or 4 episodes. But when you sell a bunch of art, like you did to that gentleman up in the hills for his house, and you get a good payday, what do you do with your money?
I usually put it in savings, I guess, or, pay bills down if I have bills built up, and then just put it in the regular savings fund, or, I guess if we have at times invited the kids out for Christmas, bought airline tickets for people, or decide to go on a trip. So, I guess a lot of times we do kind of take a little bit of it and have some fun in one way or another. But part of being successful, I think, in doing the art is I've always been a little frugal, even when I worked an IT job and made good money. Brought my own lunch and never spent, beyond my means, and that enabled me to kind of take a chance and do this business, without really affecting myself too much.
We have found in talking and doing all these interviews, the people that seem like they're, pretty successful are people that are frugal, especially in the art world. So
I've had some friends, and not just in art, that have tried other businesses too. And, they go out and they spend a bunch of money on stuff for their business, but they haven't made any money at all yet. And it just really was confusing to me why they would do that. It just makes it really hard for them then when you start out in a hole,
Right. Yeah. Do what you can with what you got and make it work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I had a neighbor that was contemplating. And I told him, don't spend any money on anything you don't need, until you can make it, and he did. I think he went by that, and he seems to be doing fine. I had another friend that wanted to also do art. He was switching over as a pretty good artist, and he went out and bought a new computer, new drafting table, had thousands of prints made of his artwork and stuff, but didn't really have any other plan beyond that, and spent all this money and had no plan on where to show his art, where to get his art. And, it just made me cringe. I really felt bad for him that he kind of gave up on it, but I don't know. He was beyond being helped.
Right.
Didn't want to listen to anybody.
So we're our worst enemies. It's hard enough because we have external, exigents working against us all the time, like the COVID-19 or whatever. But then when you're your own worst enemy by spending a bunch of money you don't really need to spend, on stuff you don't need or whatever, yeah, it really works against you. So that was good advice that you gave your friend, your neighbor.
Yeah. And it's just, like I said, my other friend, it just seemed like he just didn't get it, that he couldn't do that. And I don't know, at some point he just gave up on, and he's happy.
They're going to do what they're going to do. So, yeah.
And so he still does art part-time, but he'll probably never be a full-time artist.
What are some of the key things you think you need to do to be a full-time artist beyond being frugal with your money?
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize too that there's a lot of business sides to it. I had some of the old people that I did computer work with ask me, does it seem like a job yet? And it's like, it seemed like a job from day one, because you need to do, accounting, you got to do marketing, you need to have a little bit of a business plan. So I think, all those things that you can work on, and there's places that I can work on too. I think as far as promoting, marketing, mostly, that I need to work on more. But it is a full-time job, and you got to put a lot of effort into it. And like I told them, I've worked a lot of hours when I did computer work, 60-hour weeks and stuff like that, weekends. But I'm constantly working on my art stuff. I mean, there's not a day that I go by that there's not some aspect that crosses my mind, or something that I do that kind of isn't related to that.
There's always something that you need to be doing, right?
Yeah. So it is a business, and so I think it takes a lot of work, and anybody who's going to get into it needs to realize that it's not going to be painting pictures all day, and that's, I guess you might get lucky if you can find somebody to do all that promotional stuff for you, which is another option. That's something I've thought about trying to look into, somebody to kind of promote, your artwork and stuff. But, that's another consideration. You have to then make enough money to then support that person also.
Yeah, that's an added expense, but if you can outsource some of that stuff you don't necessarily really like, and maybe don't do as well because you don't like it, if you can afford to outsource it, I think you're better off, especially like maybe some like the marketing stuff where you hire somebody that works they maybe have a number of clients, and they're doing all the social media content stuff. That's a great way to, get back to focusing on what you do like to do and what you do well and what you're supposed to be doing, but don't jump the gun and start outsourcing everything when you can't afford it. I mean, you got to be frugal. So that's great.
Well, that's something I kind of looked at, kind of outsourcing some of that. And the marketing thing's kind of a fickle world. And I talked with a few people, and it's really, I think, hard to find somebody that you feel is going to do your marketing justice. So I need to find somebody who really enjoys my work, is really impressed with it, and then is just good at the marketing and stuff. I've seen a lot of galleries that have hired people to come in, and do that stuff, and whatever they were doing just wasn't working, And so it's another one of those fields that it sounds good to go out and find somebody, but I think finding a good person in that field is somewhat of a mystery,
Yeah. And sometimes, I think the other thing that's hard for people to understand, it's just like advertising. Sometimes you can't put your finger on whether it's working or not. You can look at the bottom line, and if you're increasing in business, then you can say, oh, it's really working. But sometimes that effort, to do the marketing, it just takes time to, it's a work in progress kind of thing. And it's hard. It's easy to say, well, this isn't working for me. Let's just jump ship. So like when I sold advertising, I'm like, it doesn't matter whether you're selling radio, television, or billboards or whatever, pick something, go in it and go all in, like put everything into radio advertising that you can, whatever, make a budget, figure that out. And then and then just kind of saturate the market, because that's the best way to do it. That's what I've seen that works best as far as advertising. And marketing is probably the same way. You just need to, get in and do it consistently,
So obviously you enjoy being a full-time artist and having a creative career, and it's much different than your previous career. What kind of advice would you give to people that want to be a full-time artist? Like, what kind of things would you tell them?
Well, I tell them to, kind of plan it out, and talk to other successful artists and see what's worked for them. I spent a lot of time when I was kind of looking into becoming an artist. My twin boys were going through getting their driver's license, so I'd get driving hours in with them, and we'd go around to the art shows and then stop, and walk around. And I'd talk to a lot of artists and kind of talk to the ones that, and you can kind of get an idea of which ones are being successful or have been around for a while and do all right. And they're real helpful in giving you advice. So, kind of plan it out and you realize there's a business side to it. I think you get a lot of artists that think they're just going to make art and find a place to put it. And it's a lot of work, but there's a lot of good information out there. You just want to plan it out and try and, budget it and work it so that, it's going to be successful, not go flying in with your eyes closed.
Starting a business, a lot of times you don't realize what you don't know. So going to find somebody that can, whether it's a mentor, a full-blown mentor, or just even like the small business administration, and find out, like, what do I need to do for sales tax? What do I need to do for, all these little things that, somebody who's an artist may not even think about, So I think it's just finding the right avenues to get those questions you don't even know what to ask answered. So,
yeah. And I think the little co-op galleries, kind of like the Denver Art Society, where you are in with other artists, can be helpful too, just to kind of share ideas with them and get tips from people as what's working, what's not. It also gives you great other people to steal artistic ideas from, which I always tease people about that, and it's funny to get their reaction. But it's kind of true, Anytime you see something you like, you make a little mental note,
So if people want to search you out, Fritz, and check out your website or any of your social media, how do they go about finding you?
Yeah, if they remember my name, Fritz Anders Art, most of it's set up underneath that. My website's fritzandersart.com. Instagram's Fritz Anders Art, and I think Facebook is too. So when I was looking at naming my art business, that was another thing. I'd kind of read some advice, and one guy said, name it after yourself, because, I looked through, when you're trying to find a name that's not been used by another company or somebody else, it's a daunting task. If you're not the number one person using that name, you're going to fall underneath everybody else. So I just went with my first, last name, and art at the end. That way there's no confusion, hopefully.
Yeah, it says who you are and what you do. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Fritz Anders, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening and sitting down and talking with us about your art and some of the business part of art. Anything else that you want to promote or talk about that's coming up in the next?
Well, hopefully once the conditions that we're under right now lift, I hope to do some more larger. When we talked about the larger pieces, I've been working on a few three-dimensional things, which are kind of different yet still, but entertaining. And so I'd like to do some kind of large installation pieces that might take up a whole wall, using different pieces of wood, combining them together with some wood burning, wood carving, and some staining. I think those will be interesting. I've got some pieces that I've worked on a little bit, and some other ideas drawn out. So, and then I've got a few kind of carved pieces that are, like I said, three-dimensional, that kind of fall on the whimsical side. But like I said, I think they're very interesting. People, I think, will enjoy them. It'd be something a little different down the road. Always keep learning.
Here you go, right?
It never ends, that's for sure. Yeah. No matter how good you are, it's always about learning.
Yeah, and I think that keeps things interesting, Always be willing to try something new.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, sir. For the Tenet Podcasts, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.